Hello, everybody.
Were each of us what? Sorry.
Producers.
Yes.
Yes, you are. I know it. Cool. Okay. Alrighty. All right. Y'all win a prize for that one. That's great. All right. Now, we have just discovered the very first, which was going to be my last question. What are the pitfalls of the live stream? So really, if I mute everybody else, does anybody want to take that first question? Raise your hand. Because it's not going to be me. All right, Matt.
Sure. I mean, I think like everyone, I've gone through trying a lot of the different options that we have now for streaming and kind of ways to put stuff out there, and I've found some combinations that work fine for me, but I've also found working with other people that different things work better for them, and so there's definitely been some trial and error. And I don't, I think depending on how good your internet is and how good your gear is, I went from a very old laptop that was at the end of its life, and I needed a new one anyway. And so once I got the new laptop, it really, changed everything in terms of my ability to connect. But yeah, it's just from day to day. It just depends on how good the internet service is, and seems like there's a lot of variables. It's a lot to control.
That's a great argument for us all to get behind the ongoing political movement for net neutrality, so that we can all have consistent, wide open internet pipes that are not throttled by companies beyond our control. It's one of the greatest infrastructure problems of our country. So, yeah, trial and error. That's my thing. And I've been trying to do live streams that have more than one person on them. I'm no longer interested in just me sitting in front of my computer playing to the ether. So, for example, conversation with y'all feels really interesting to me. That's been one of my adaptations, flexibility with intent, of how to be in this situation is to connect more rather than less.
So what you talked about, getting away from just doing it by yourself. I think there was a big hit back in March. Everybody who was out playing music and suddenly couldn't anymore. They were all, at least on even on a local and a regional level, and that became, in my opinion, it became oversaturated and inundated with mediocrity. And it was refreshing to see someone of your caliber, of you folks, and your level of professionalism to come out and bring the music into our homes at one point. But do you think that some of that has also become oversaturated as well? Anybody
sure.
chime in?
Definitely. I think we knew it was in the beginning, and I think we're having just Zoom weariness as people. So like Erin said, I think doing things with more intent and maybe a little bit less is more. And then there's still folks who are doing the streaming, several times a week, if not daily, and that's great. I think you can tune it out if you want to. I've seen some interesting, people saying they're getting so weary of so-and-so being on all of the time. It's like, well, just don't look at it if you don't want to. It's I kind of have changed my tune for a while. I felt like people were muddying the waters, and the waters have been muddied already. So people are going to choose what they want to tune into. And I think as artists, though, the question is more what feels interesting to you to partake in. And I similarly, like singing by myself in a room into my computer is not that chewy to me. So doing it in a scenario like this, even with the technological stuff, I feel like I get to hang out with my friends, and it makes me feel less lonely in this very strange time.
Picking up on that, Natalia, you had a series. It was you and some others. I don't remember exactly who was at the forefront of it or who was leading it, but you had a series back in, was it March or April, that oh my goodness, there have been so many monikers to remember. What was the name of it?
It was called Shut In and Sing, and it was
Shut In and Sing. Yes, there's so much clever names we're all passing around, and so that was something where you had a schedule, right? And you had a lineup, as you will, almost like an online. What was the schedule like? Was it daily? Was it weekly?
We had 5 shows a week for 8 weeks, and there were 4 performers a night, except for Sunday there were 6. Sometimes there were more on Wednesdays and it was Wednesday and Sunday afternoon. The rest were in the evening on the East Coast time. I love you too, Dana Goldberg. And it was, it was responding to an immediate need. It was an amazing experience. I think Kelly and I happened to be together when, people were getting the stay in place orders, and it was like, uh-oh. This is everyone I know, including myself, everything was canceled from now till eternity. And I thought, what can we do? We have such an amazing, rich Rolodex of friends and colleagues, and it really took off, and it filled a need for a period of time. And I'm really proud of it. It was an incredibly difficult thing to do, and it felt really useful at the time.
I think that's where some of our experience in production and logistics comes into play, putting things like that together. Some of you, maybe not the 3 of you, but some folks have been part of live streams that have been presented by some of the folk clubs in particular. Club Passim, Cafe Lena, who else did that? Just chime in if you want to. Any of you, part of those presentations?
I did a Green Note one that's in London, in the UK.
Yeah, me too. That was a good one.
Yeah. They put that together really well. It was enjoyable. I did a couple that were local to where I live in Austin, Texas. There was a local club, the Saxon Pub, did one pretty early on, and that was pre-recorded though. So they had a cast of thousands, and you pre-recorded a song or 2 and sent them in. And I feel I did a few more of those. I did a Bluegrass Situation series that they did early on, and those were all pre-recorded though.
Yeah, 2 of those are happening here in Bethlehem. The Music Fest itself, I'm sure you're familiar with Music Fest, right? Most of you are. Have you all played Music Fest? Each of you? We'll make it happen. I can make that happen in the future.
Isn't that what we're doing right now?
We're
playing Music Fest
right now. Oh, we got to do this. Anyway, what happened? Music Fest is one of the largest. It is probably the largest music festival in the United States. It's 10 days of music all over Bethlehem. I think there are. I don't even know how many stages we could count. Maybe 20, 30. Anyway. That is not happening. So being a nonprofit organization, Arts Quest, the parent company, has put all of this together so that some of it will be pre-recorded and some of it will be live streamed from one of the cable TV studios. So the scheduling of all of that and getting people to come in and do it is going to be very interesting. But the Pride of the Lehigh Valley, which is coming up on August 16th, is all pre-recorded. I know I recorded one song to submit to them to put in part of their stream, and I had to do it from here at home. And it's interesting because I think they had probably 8 or 10 of us submitting to put that thing together, and that's all a local event, which now is going to reach. I mean, Chris Matthews is going to be a part of that as one of their headliners, as well as Rachel Kilgore. So I think they're going to reach a lot of people across the country, if not internationally, with that. Do you find that any of this has increased or improved your fan base or your following? Or has it really been a struggle?
No. No, but that's okay. I mean, that's okay. It's okay because, like with the pandemic, or the pando, as I like to call it, has taught me is basically like, stop striving. Mm-hmm. It's okay if something doesn't increase. It's okay if more. Like we need a moment to unplug from that. So I feel honestly like very relieved to not be trying to grow my fan base right now. And again, just trying to have experiences that are just unique to this time, as opposed to trying to keep some sense of normalcy, you know? I have a question for Matt and Natalia. I was really curious, like when everything got canceled in March, you know, I did the like COVID two-step of the like cancel, reschedule for a little bit of time. And then at some point it dawned on me that this was not, we're not going to reschedule, we're not putting it back together. For me, that was maybe mid-April. I was curious when it was for you all, and like what was your process in the like blooming moment of like, wait, this isn't, we're not going, June is not possible.
I will say that I do not at all believe that I'm smarter than anybody. I think I'm just more pessimistic. But on March 13th, I was certain that I wouldn't play a gig in 2020. Just straight up, like we didn't reschedule anything. You know, we still haven't. You know, I've got a record in the can that I don't know when it's coming out, and as far as I can tell, I'm just going to sit on it maybe for another year, maybe more. And again, I think that's largely just due to kind of a cynical outlook about things like this. And early on, I thought, oh, like this might do whatever it's going to do, this virus, but this country we live in is not going to handle it well. So I'm just going to hunker down and like start playing my songs on the internet. And, you know, still doing that.
Yeah, I think I was in a unique position early on to have my ear to the ground and talk to 168 musicians and plus, and hear, you know, worldwide. And it wasn't looking good. I felt it in my bones before I knew it. And there's still a part of me that's, it's hard to even fathom. I think the part that's been the hardest, in the COVID two-step, the reschedule, cancel, but there's also this sort of like, oh, the venues, the fans, and now it's like you guys. Oh my God, Erin and I can see each other. We're not too far, but you know, when will we get to see our peeps? And it's the same with family too. But there's just this kind of deeper understanding that it's definitely not a simple thing. There's all the feels. I mean, there's a lot of relief, and there's a lot of kind of in every day, like excitement and terrifying moments. When I have enough serotonin and I try to stay in the excitement, it's pretty great. And that we get to be, you know, this time is so unique in every way, but the fact that we can be disconnected, we can stream, is what a gift. You get to have these questions of like, how do I want to appear in social media? You know, it's pretty incredible that we're even being able to talk about it. But I will say this was kind of a sweet thing. My last gig that I rescheduled and canceled, I was the last person for the entire venue. It was Freight and Salvage in Berkeley, and they were like, I don't know what this says about you, but you're the last person. And I thought I was kind of waiting for everybody else to shut the door before I did it, because that was happening.
Wait, do you mean that the venue is closed for good, or
no?
Oh, okay.
I was the last artist to cancel.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know my last gig was going to be my last gig. It was I played at a theater in Olney, Maryland, like after a showing of our musical, and that's the last gig. Who knew?
Was it awesome?
It was awesome. If that's the end of it, you know, like if that's the end of it for forever, that was a pretty good one to go out on.
It's good to know that. You brought up one of my questions, Natalia, was about, you know, what do we look like when we're live streaming? You know, what's our mood? What kind of lighting? What's our behavior? How to, you know, there's more to it, but did you have to, like, I don't know, trial and error with all of that? Did you have some failures, do you think?
I think we're currently having one.
Yeah, well, right now this is working. Everything's good.
Yeah, I would say it's a trial. And
For sure. Error. We had error. Yeah.
Who cares? Like we're together, people are getting what they're gonna get. And it, you know, it's amazing to watch when somebody has like it's super dialed in and it's all working. It is kind of amazing. And you have to know that there's half the people watching it are watching it on their phone. It just doesn't really.
That's true.
So I think Erin has an interesting thing for artists, which is to dial in your sound for yourself, and she can speak to that. But you have your own experience as an artist performing that is pleasing yourself.
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy with the live streams is make yourself happy. So I make my sound like dreamy. And not for tonight because we're just talking, but if I was playing music, I put it in my ears and I don't really hear anything else, and it sounds exactly how I would want it to sound, like the best version of the best record I ever made. And then it gets squeezed through the internet and degraded and comes out through your phone or your car or while your kid is screaming at you, or your neighbor's dog will not stop barking while you are on a live stream, like whatever it is. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not, but yeah. So everything's fine over there. It just does that all the time. Don't worry. Anyway, just so I can enjoy myself. And I have to say, like that never happens at a club, right? Here we are at a club and we are listening back to ourselves already degraded. Maybe the audience is having a good sound experience, but we are very rarely on stage having a good sound experience. For example, we have some version of ourselves squawking back at us from a tiny box at our feet, you know? And so that's some pleasure I've taken, is to be able to at least have the confidence to bathe in my own sound. And I personally think it makes my performance better. If I'm happier and I can hear things and I'm not shouting to like through SM58, you know what I mean? Like I think I can give a better performance for folks. I certainly don't get as tired.
What happens during those the uncomfortable, like where you want to hear applause, where you typically hear applause? The
applause is in my brain. The applause is the dog next door.
What is the applause you speak of?
Well, usually when you finish a song.
You know, I made a I was like an inveterate like 4-tracker when I was a mid-teenager and into high school. And I would sometimes put applause on my 4-tracks. Like I had an applause, like, I don't even know how I did it at that time. I would have probably like made a tape loop of applause from a TV show and then played it into my 4-track and let it run through a song. And then I would sweep the volume knob of it so it would sound like a bunch of people were clapping along. And then the applause is in your mind.
I have a question for you, Erin. Specifically,
is it about dogs?
No, it's not. It's about baseball, because I know that you, like me, are just a huge baseball fan, and baseball. I believe it's coming back at some point. It's very soon, is what I'm hearing, and I've been watching a little bit of Japanese baseball and the South Korean baseball. You can get it on YouTube or there's some other channel that does the South Korean stuff, but they put the South Koreans put stuffed animals in the stands instead of, because there's no people at the games. And
yeah, I've seen cardboard cutouts in soccer stadiums.
Yeah. But apparently the word I just heard yesterday is that American baseball, they're going to pipe in for the televised games the sound of audience and applause. And that feels, I would rather the stuffed animals. That's my personal, but I'm curious how you feel about the piped in.
I feel the same way. I would rather the stuffed animals. I've watched some soccer that has the fake soundtrack to it, and I think there's like even been some snafus where they've got the wrong chants for the wrong teams, like playing in the background. So if you know soccer, you know that's like the Liverpool chant, and you're watching like a Manchester game or something like that. So I don't think baseball should be happening at all. That's how I feel. I feel the same way about like if personally I feel like I don't want to give a concert until we're through this. That's some weird approximation of that experience or some compromised version of that or something that will get people sick is not interesting to me. Like, and if possible to have the ability to step back and just not do it. for a second is my ideal. I mean, that'll never happen with the multi-billion-dollar sports leagues. I'll be really curious about the sounds and stuffed animals.
I would watch baseball if there were stuffed animals in the stand.
This is, yeah.
I did not know that. I'm going to now tune into Korean and Japanese baseball.
I think there's a possibility they could get a whole new audience out of this. So.
Furries.
If we can't play, they can't play.
It's certainly like, you know, they don't buy as many hot dogs. That's a problem.
I had a thought that something that you brought up is that some of the venues, like I know how I feel about watching people play music at, and again, I have to go local because I'm not going out and I'm not going anywhere. So what I'm seeing locally here in Bethlehem is that people are being hired to play at bars, sitting outside in the parking lot. And it's like this, to me, it's this false sense of festivity. And you know, it's aside from going out and playing in a club, like a place like, what did you say, Freight and Salvage, or even Godfrey's, if we had to put, imagine if we had to put plexiglass across the whole front of the stage. I mean, there's no point, to me, there's no point in having a show if we can only put 10 people in the room and everyone has to stay away from our spit flying out, you know, every time we sing. How do you feel about some of the venues that are actually opening experimentally? There are a few here and there doing experimental shows. Any thoughts on it? Yeah.
I mean, there's some places in Austin that have opened up in the last, you know, Texas had we opened up a lot of things and now we're kind of reclosing everything. But there were gigs. I knew people in the Austin music scene that took some gigs and played outside or situations like that. And through all of this, I'm trying to just really remain very empathetic to the idea that everybody's dealing with their own struggle. And so I'm not going to take the gig. But I also have, you know, I have the ability to stream from home, and that has been helpful financially. And I have other ways to kind of to take care of myself financially when I really need to. And I just haven't hit the point where that has made sense. But I know there are people out there that are struggling, you know, in a way that I can't really fathom. And if they need to take the gig, they got to take the gig. But yeah, that's kind of my only thought of it. It doesn't seem fulfilling musically. And I think most of the people that are taking those gigs here in town are doing it because they need the paycheck. I don't think they're doing it because they think it's going to be a fun or interesting experience necessarily.
Yes, that's an interesting perspective on it. I think that it might be a mix of it here where I'm sitting, and it's a tough place to navigate, because again, you know, how do we try to be festive for a festival when, yeah, there's so much happening. Do any of you find that on top of pandemic, all of, not any of, but all of the other human rights issues and such are really piling on top of what we're all experiencing, being shut in, basically?
Sure. I mean, I think everything is kind of the perfect storm, you know, that we're in a place of reckoning, and it only happened because people had enough time to pause and notice. And there's a lot of really wonderful things that are happening because of that. And now our job as artists is to take that and translate it, and do a lot of really deep listening personally and to the world. So I think what's happening socially is because of the pandemic, and not because, but where we're at is it's all happening kind of in perfect order. And the way we respond is is going to be so incredibly important in this time.
Completely agree with you on that. I hear a bird now. The dog's gone, and now we hear birds. That's sweet.
The dog's not gone.
The dog won't know.
I started to do.
You want some dog? Here's some dog.
started to do a broadcast a few weeks ago, and my neighbor next door, his son came over for the weekend, and is a very excitable child, screaming right outside the window. So, you know how you feel. So has this given you all time? Because I know for a lot of us, we're sitting here saying, oh, we have all the time in the world, but we don't really. Are like all of a sudden we have a schedule as well, because we're creators and we're productive. And are you finding that you're still able to, not just like sitting around, you know, some long vacation twiddling our thumbs, but we're all able to actually produce and create during this time?
Well, I don't think your listeners necessarily know this, but Matt and Natalia and I have been in the same songwriting group for, I mean, I've been in it since at least 2014. Matt started it, Matt runs it, and you know, it's a weekly song prompt from Matt the Electrician's mind, and then we all write songs with it and send it into our group, and that kind of accountability and regimen and routine has been great for me in the Pando. It's been like a thing to like plug into, and you know, I don't have perfect attendance, hardly anyone does, but it's helped me be more. I resist the term productive at this time, but it has helped me like keep the channel open, and I personally don't feel like when I write those songs I need to be writing like something for my album or a next hit or anything like that. And that really feels like in the spirit of what's happening at this moment right now. We're just practicing. We're just sitting back. We're just seeing what comes. And so I know I've been really grateful for that group and for both of y'all's work like during that time, because it's a real joy to just see what your friends are working on. You know, even if we are the only people that ever hear those songs.
Erin's got all the good words. Pando, the COVID two-step.
I've had tons.
I think there's something really basic, you know, not that I think we make art and think about how we're going to then produce it, but sometimes you get to a certain place and you start to think about how an audience would respond to a thing. You know, taking all of that away is really freeing. And getting back to some practices for myself that I haven't done because I can't market it, or I haven't had time being out there doing the things that do make the money. And it's kind of getting really back in touch with it, sort of what I'm called to make as an artist on this planet, just in this incarnation. And so that's been a deepening process for me. And I don't share all of that, and I probably never will. And that's also really wonderful. I haven't made art for myself in my entire adult career, probably. I mean, some of it is pretty navel-gazy, let's be honest. But I mean, I'm generally thinking, how am I going to put this out in the world, or is this sellable? And to completely remove that nasty dialogue from my head has been pretty awesome. I'm really grateful for that.
100% down with that.
Yeah. And each of you has promoters and you know, press people and agent management. How does that all work at this point in time?
I don't have any of that. Next.
Yeah, I only have one of those 5 things. And they can't really do their job right now. So.
Yeah, I have a couple of those things, and throughout this, but really right off the bat, that it occurred to me in the first week when we were all, you know, it was so easy to take your phone and lean it against the wall and play guitar, and, you know, people could tune in, your fans could see you, your friends could see you, and if they wanted to, they could tip you. And it immediately occurred to me that like managers and agents and like none of them can do that. You know, they don't have that flexibility, that you know, in that moment to figure out something quick and new and a way to make money, and also just to stay connected. And you know, I think at the end of this, in the same way that a lot of venues are probably going to disappear, and a lot of restaurants and a lot of businesses, and I think, you know, probably a lot of people in that side of the music industry might go away. I don't, you know, and it's not great news, but it also, you know, for me, just staying connected with those people and making sure that I can be a positive force in maintaining those relationships, because if things do go back to normal, you know, I need them to still be there doing their jobs, ideally. So anything I can kind of do for them. Now, that being said, there's a whole lot of just, you've probably seen movies about the music industry, and there's a whole lot of terrible managers and agents that should probably go away, and that's fine that that's happening. And I'm saying that because I have them and I don't need to go out and find a new one. So I'm probably not burning any bridges right now by saying that.
No, it's a cleansing. It's a cleansing of the music industry is what's happening.
That's a very interesting thought. I also want to take note of, say, side players, people who are, you know, they typically make their living as a studio musician or a side player. They don't have the ability to sit in their home and actually entertain people because they're not out in front. It's not what they do. They're more happy being off to the side. Do you think it's going to affect them in an adverse way as far as their healthy attitude?
I mean, there isn't one person that hasn't been affected in some way, and I also think there's a lot of innovation, and so a lot of the side players that I know are doing a lot of those split screen musical things, and/or working their asses off. Actually, people are still making records, and so being able to have the home capability. Most people have something. Not most people, but a lot of people have some capability of home recording. So I think there's still a lot of work going on. I'm sure there are people absolutely struggling and freaking. Andrew Crespin, what do you think?
He's right. I'll never work in this town again. I mean, it's likely I won't, outside of my garage.
It's likely nobody will.
I was afraid to let that one go on screen. I didn't know if it would be safe or not.
I mean, Andrew is a bass player, and he's not playing bass right now. I mean, if he could do a live stream of bass playing, but I wouldn't recommend it, and I don't think anyone would want to watch it.
I still want to watch that.
Go. Okay.
Me too.
He did a live stream where he just answered questions. That actually was pretty rad. I know several side players. I know a lot of side players that are doing recording gigs at home, and I know several people that have really dug into figuring out what their next career is going to be.
It's inspiring, actually. I hope it's inspiring for people who.
It's not surprising. I mean, it's not surprising to me. I mean, I think all of us as the musicians who like Natalia and Matt and myself, who, you know, I hope they consider me a peer. I consider them a peer. Like this idea of we have been like adapting and trying to figure out like a shifting ground underneath us for many, many, many years. We're all people who started our careers in a totally different music economy than is now, where we could sell CDs, we could sell downloads, you know, a whole different way of building a financial career without social media, all of that. And we have all made that transition into the way it is now by adapting, by innovating, by broadening the reach of what we do in our lives. You know, I think in some ways, independent musicians have been set up really well. I mean, I don't think anyone, like, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition or a pandemic, but like, I think we are in some ways like already adaptable people, already flexible people, already like used to surrendering to the idea of like you show up to the gig and the PA doesn't work, you know, and now we're just like looking at that on like a bigger level, and I'm not surprised that we're all figuring out new and different things to do, because that is what we do.
I've answered this question several times recently. You know, people say, "Guy was must have been so crazy, you know, with everything changing." I'm like, I get up every day in non-pandemic times and try to figure out how to make $200. Like, that's what I do every day. That's my job is I get up and figure out how to make $200. The thing I do for fun is I get to write songs. And sometimes I get to sing them for people. But my job is I wake up in the morning and go, like, do I need to sell something? Do I need to convince somebody to pay me? Like, what do I need to do? So in a weird way, this doesn't feel any different in terms of the kind of the socioeconomic stress of it. You know, there's all the other existential angst that is certainly a new and fun thing to deal with every day. But
I used to describe our job as like, okay, so like you work in an office. What if every day the office location changed? And what if every day when you walked into your office, you had no idea if someone had kicked your desk apart and you had to like put it back together with a tool that you didn't have? Like that kind of, that's what we've been doing, is walking into spaces, walking into situations and using what's there and creating experiences for folks. Or I like how Matt put it, like, yeah, I'm sure we all have in our mind a daily nut or a monthly nut, and we're going to figure out how to get that. And my job is driving. It used to be driving. And for fun, I would play music.
You'll see this comment down here from Casey Edward. I sat for an interview last night. A common theme was that songwriters are essential to help survive this and help people find direction through the noise. This medium may be the way for the short term.
Yeah, I agree, Casey. And I don't know that it's the short term. I think now that we've sort of been introduced to it, there's a lot in it that's really better. The not having to drive thing is fantastic for the most part. I think, you know, being in a room with humans there's nothing that's ever going to replace that. And live music is live music. And I think being able to connect with people and make that connection on a virtual stage is pretty incredible. I mean, I think we've all had that experience before, but now that we've had so much of that experience and it is the way, I don't see us going back to not doing that. I hope it'll be a both and situation. I think it will, of course. And I love that it's innovating. And I want to say too, there's, as much as there's, you know, technological glitches, it is more consistent than a gig. Even the venues you've been to before, you show up and it's like, it's a different sound person. I don't know. It's just, there's so many unknowns in a physical brick and mortar space that there isn't, you know, my commute to my shows has been to go downstairs into my living room, and wow, to remove the exhaustion of, and the stress on the environment, the stress on, I think financially too, to know that I was sort of going over all my tax stuff, and it was like, oh, the amount of money, the amount of times I broke even out there because of the travel, and that's all right off. This is so boring, but it is actually to remove that element is huge. And I don't see our genre going back to doing exclusive shows in spaces for our lifetime.
Did you read the Roseanne Cash article in The Atlantic? The title, the headline, or the title of the article was, "I Will Miss What I Wanted to Lose." And the article is great, and it basically, you know, it says what a lot of us think all the time is, and like you said, I think we all envision a both and future. It's not that I don't want to play live shows again. It's just it is going to change. Everything's going to change. We don't know what it's going to look like in a year. There's going to be fewer venues. fewer everything maybe, and the competition will be kind of, you know, tougher for a lot of us in terms of just getting those shows. But I read somewhere, again, in the first couple of weeks, somebody you know, posted, maybe it was a Twitter thing. They said, well, you know, after the first month of the lockdown, I did my books after the tours canceled, and I made $271. Like, you know, you come out positive, because I think, at least for me, the level I'm at, you know, in this game, is I do make a living from it, but it's also, the expenses are so high, and the toll on your body, you know, the driving 15 hours at one sitting to get to a thing that, you know, pays you $100. And I'm not complaining. We do it. It's our choice that we decided to do. But when you get that month where you sit in one place, and once a week you wander into your garage, turn on your phone and play, and you're like, oh, I actually saved money. That's pretty, I don't know how math works, but.
My friend, his drummer, he said that he would like to hear the views of an economist, not people who manage money, but who you know, talk about trends and people's psyche, and how the psyche is reacting to all of this.
I mean, my psyche is very happy to have gotten off what I think of as a wheel that I couldn't get off, and to have a choice to get back on it, or get back on it in a more mindful way. Yeah, I thought nothing of, you need me in Virginia tomorrow? Great. I'll drive 10 hours by myself. You know, and it's like, I didn't have the perspective to be like, that's actually more or less a waste of my time. Like, those 10 hours when I'm trying not to die on a road, or trying not to kill someone else, are 10 hours that I could be devoting to justice, for example, or, you know, getting my neighbor groceries, or it's just the calculation is different for me now. I think that's what I would say. The calculation is very different for me now, and not to mention, as Natalia, you know, the earth. The earth, I think, thanks us.
Well, that's for sure.
Are we being too pessimistic for your, like, music loving fans?
For me, I can never have enough pessimism. I'm a self-professed curmudgeon, so the fact that we're smiling is really cool. You know, there's some hope. There is some hope. We have to find it. Right now, we're all worried about. In my life, I'm worried about school. You know, my granddaughter is 5, and she's ready to start kindergarten, and she's not going to school. And Mom let me know today she's not going to go to school. She's going to have to sit in a room at 5 years old, looking at a tablet and learning from her home. But I realized I could find some positivity in that I can, between now and when school starts, I can engage her in some kind of activity through this medium, because I can't go there. She's an hour away, but I can't be with her. But we can teach people, and we can connect with them in this medium if they're willing to accept it and, you know, and interact in that way. What do you all think about giving workshops and or master classes or things like that in this environment?
I have been doing that. I'm teaching several online songwriting courses. One that's just started last night, and another one that's starting in August. And I've also co-led some retreats, some meditation, qigong, music retreats. And that, in particular, that realm, I really wasn't sure how that would go, because it's so much about being together. And similarly, at the end of the weekend, I was not exhausted by having small talk at dinner. I got really deep with people really fast. I have 2 little nieces too who won't be going to school in the fall, and I've been doing a weekly crafternoon with Auntie, and I actually get their attention in some ways. It has waned a bit. It's sort of diminishing returns, as is everything, because they're tired of looking at their computer too. But being able to be with them that way on a schedule is something we didn't have before. So yeah, the innovative moments are what we have to really hold on to.
Yeah, I've been teaching online for years, and so it was just a nice opportunity to like get back to that, double down on that practice. There's a few things that don't work, but there's a lot of things that really do, and I find the focus of being able to, I find the focus of being able to teach with someone is really great. It's honestly, it's also like we have these cameras and we can use them. So like I can literally hold my hand up to a camera and show somebody what I'm doing with the guitar. And you would never, if you were taking a guitar lesson, you would never put your face 1 inch from my guitar. You know what I mean? Or if I'm performing an online concert, I can use the camera. I can, you know what I mean? We have these options of things that we wouldn't do because norms keep us from invading each other's space. You know, I went to right when the pandemic went down of a husband of a friend died very suddenly, and this person was in Philly, and I would not have been able to go to a funeral if it wasn't the pandemic, but instead I was able to go on Zoom, and I was able to like participate in a community ritual and to see his aunt, for example, talking up close to the camera and have that intimate experience, and I don't know. I have a large list of pandemic lessons like that that are not music business related at all.
I've never really done any teaching per se. I have kids, so they would probably beg to differ. I'm pretty pedantic when it comes to dealing with them. But I haven't ruled it out. It's just not something I've gone out in search of. Ever since March, I've kind of felt like I've enjoyed the Me and the Camera show. And to be clear, like my wife joins me and helps me with the comments, and she started singing with me on some tunes, which has been really fun because we met singing together, and she's not a professional musician, and so I've been like dragging her in front of the camera. So so that's really been fun, and I kept kind of telling myself that I'm just going to do that until I burn out on that, or nobody watches anymore. And so far, it's still fun for me, and I think at some point I may add the option for some. I don't know what I would teach. I don't know. I am a trumpet player though, and I've been practicing trumpet every day for the last 2 weeks, which is not something I have done ever really, because I studied it in college and I never practiced then. I was told to, but I never did. So maybe I could teach beginning trumpet.
I would take that lesson. I took a piano lesson the other day. I did a skill trade with another songwriter, and I showed them how to use the program Logic for half an hour, and they gave me a piano lesson for half an hour, and it was on the list of pandemic blessings. Like one of the coolest like experiences of this was to, you know, and obviously we didn't need to have a pandemic to do a skill trade online or off, but this was the conditions that, you know, created that, and that's something I really love to do.
My
son, teach me trumpet.
Nice, I will. My son's been doing. He goes to a performing arts high school that has been all online since March, but for the summer they offered. All of their teachers offered like kind of summer camp lessons. So he's been taking one-on-one voice lessons and then a tap class. So doing tap dancing. He's been digging it.
That's great. My granddaughter's been taking ballet online. I cannot imagine doing that with 5-year-olds. It's quite a scene. I had 2 of my drum lessons via FaceTime. It's not easy because you got to get the camera in just the right angles so you can see the hands and where things are going. Do you see Casey's comment? Have you considered Zoom shows and lessons? I used to pay almost $40. I'm assuming $40 for half hour guitar lessons. I paid $100 an hour for trumpet lessons at the conservatory, and that was in the 90s. I'm not sure who that's directed toward, but I think kind of
maybe Max, who's saying doesn't teach,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I mean,
maybe.
My thing with teaching and with lessons is I think I've always known that there's money there, if it, like, and there's probably people that would be willing to pay me. I just I don't know that I don't know that I would be a good teacher. It's just not something I've ever really done.
I've talked about that so many times. You'd be so good at it, and you always say, you know, oh, I don't know thing to teach.
I mean, the nice thing in all of this is that I've been doing a lot of home projects, and my electrician and carpentry skills are kind of getting back, like they're in practice right now. So it has occurred to me more than once in the last month that anytime the music money dries up, like I'm gonna go, you know, wire houses again. That's it's nice to kind of know that they're still building out there. In fact, they're building right across the street from our house, which they start doing every morning at about 7 a.m. So so that's cool too. Maybe I could just walk across the street.
Here's your $200.
Yeah.
Listen,
So
the secret to teaching, Matt, honestly, is to just genuinely tell people, like, you're great. Like, really. Like to just give people value to their voice. You know, that's been my experience, is that, like, you just support people and they know what to do. It's like we stop ourselves more than anything else. And to be able to listen, I love that about my students. I love, like, when they do something that feels authentic to them, and I just get to say, that was an amazing choice. And I mean it every time. And you can see the way a student, like, just feels, right? I'm the same way. Like if I had a teacher who was like, you did a great job. It's like, oh my gosh, now I want to do more. And that's all it should be, right? Is like something to, like, get you to keep going. Because if give any of us enough time, anybody enough time and enough, like, support, we can make anything. There's your optimism.
Yeah, I feel like I'm always a creativity midwife. Just like, okay, I'm here to catch it. I can tell you sort of what to eat to have a healthy one, but otherwise, it's on you.
I'm thrilled to know that, Matt, you are an electrician.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I spoke with an old electrician buddy the other day, and they're very, very busy right now. So, you know.
Well, they got it. So we're getting on a little over an hour, even with our issues up at the top of this thing. So I kind of wanted to hit one last thing, and I'm this is sort of a debate I've been having with people about the issue between when you do go on live stream, and we're using a certain bit of language. We're using words tips. We're using pay what you will. We're using pay what you can. We're using suggested donation, and we're using ticketing. Some people actually have ticketing. Do any of you have any thoughts on the language? Is that a muddy area? Which is helpful? Does anybody find anything to be more beneficial to you? Because we all need to make a living doing this, and how's that helping?
I think the only thing that matters is pinning wherever you're tipping or to the top of the comment list, and then the people will figure it out. But I haven't had as much live streaming experience. Maybe Matt can speak to that, but I think the verbiage is irrelevant. I just think making it accessible. It's a little bit tough when you have to go to an external place. That's why ticketing sometimes is great, because it's in advance and then they're just in. But tipping, pay what you want, pay what you can, suggested donations, it all works out.
Yeah, I'm definitely kind of aware of the conversation amongst musicians in general. Like I know Natalia has some of these too in her family, but I have friends that were kind of legit music. Sorry, that's the music school term that's left over, but classical musicians for a nicer way to say it. But musicians that are probably in this country at this time, maybe part of a union, maybe they play for a local city symphony orchestra. And I've had conversations in the past about the idea of musicians devaluing themselves. and how that can be very problematic, not just for themselves, but for the music community as a whole. And while I'm sympathetic to that argument, I think in this time, I know for myself, it's been a lot easier to go the no ticketing route and just assume, and again, so far it's been fine, that the people that are going to support you are going to support you. And the people that are able to support you are going to support you. I think especially as time moves on, I'm hyper aware that while I need to make some money, I'm also dealing with an audience that probably all don't have their jobs either, and are also dealing with a multitude of issues and financial pitfalls. So I can decide to clamp down and make it so it's a ticketed event every time. But I think if I do that, I'm gonna excise a certain percentage of my fans that might just need to hear songs and need to have a connection point. So again, I think I'm lucky in that so far I haven't had to kind of make that decision. It's just kind of worked out. But yeah, I do kind of look at it as a service that I'm providing, and then hopefully, the people that can help out will help out.
I was waiting for Erin to chime in on that one.
I mean, I have, well, I've stopped doing live streams for the time being. I'm just taking a break for the summer. But any live stream that I have been doing before this break was whatever combination of words you want to use: pay what you can, pay what you will, suggest a donation, tip jar, pass the hat. And I was really pleased with how that financially reflected how I felt about doing it. I mean, it's been fine. I may try a ticketing thing in the fall with a very specific program that I'm imagining doing, and I can't make a prediction, but I was just listening to Matt talk, and I was like, oh, maybe I won't do ticketing. That was really nice, speech about you're right. No, you're really right. So maybe I won't do ticketing. I don't know yet, but it's a future consideration for sure.
Yeah, the one true thing about right now is that every day, whatever you decided the day before changes the next day. And I realized, even as I was saying it, that tomorrow I am playing a ticketed show that is a live stream here in Austin. Well, it's right outside of Austin at the Blue Rock. I don't know. You guys have both been to Blue Rock, right? I think. Natalia, you have. It's a beautiful recording studio in the Hill Country outside of Austin in Wimberley. And they put on shows, as well as it's a recording studio where you can make a record. And they're doing a summer concert series with myself and Ruthie Foster and Carrie Rodriguez, who I know Erin. And so I'm going to go down there and sing into a nice microphone and great sound and good video and everything, but with nobody else in the room ostensibly. And then, so I'll get to do a live stream version of what I do, but with much better production, and that's ticketed. So it's like a real gig. And I don't know how it goes. I'll let you know on Friday. Maybe everything will change in my mind about ticketing. I don't know.
Yeah, that is. I think the value added of multiple cameras or really nice sound. I think there is a relationship between that and ticketing that works a lot. I mean, I know that I saw the band. I love the band Lake Street Dive, and they just released a concert that they had recorded a couple years ago and never did anything with, and they live streamed it. And I watched some of it, and from the moment it began, it had multiple cameras and really nice sound and really nice lights, and my eyes were just very hungry for that. So it was nice to see something besides, no harm, no foul to anyone on this call, but to see a moving camera and to see people making music and look at them from a different angle than, it'd be really nice to see somebody like this for a little while, So I think, yeah, I'd pay for that. I did pay for that, So I think people people might be down for that. Please report back.
Erin changed her name while we were.
Well, yeah, it's my job. Before I was a musician, I was just.
How did you do that?
Oh, StreamYard.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, so when the music dries up, I'll go back to that job.
This one last thing. You talked about the multiple cameras. One of the relying on the things we did before. I've been a graphic designer my whole life, so some of the things in learning as we go along. And Natalia, you've got the painting and murals and fine art and all of that. But you've been doing that all along as well, as a dual career, as we should maybe call it. But I had to find a way to try to create video and teach myself video editing and using 3 different camera angles, like take the computer, the phone, and another phone and set them up in different places, and then layer those things in an Adobe program and try to learn how to make that 3-camera movie. It's too time consuming.
Are you having fun?
I love it. Cool. That's all that matters. Yes. All right, folks. Do y'all have anything else you wanna add to this? Because I think we've had a wonderful, wonderful discussion. I think we
miss everybody. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Love you, Dina. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for bringing all the others along. This is really wonderful. And I think that people are learning a lot from you folks as we go along, because we're all sitting here behind on the front of the screen and watching what's going on and wondering. Even I'm going to talk about from a vantage point of running a club like Godfrey Daniels, we're still in flux of knowing what should this group do, what should we do. The radio program of Live from Godfrey Daniels on WDIY. I'm not going to the radio station and putting my face up against a microphone that other people have just been in that studio doing. So I don't feel like I'm serving all of you as well in that time, because I'm not putting the music out there here. So it's nice to all be able to get together and air our grievances, as they say.
Well,
all right.
For you to stay safe, Dina. So thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
okay.
thanks for having us.
Thank you. All right, folks. Natalia Zukerman, Matt the Electrician, Erin McKeown, otherwise known as Erin the Picture Framer, Natalia the Painter, and I'm Dina Hall. It's been wonderful to have you all here, and I think y'all will follow up with all the information that we talked about here. And thank you for your comments. Invaluable Corey Schroyer from Sitka, Alaska. That's cool. And one more from Lori LaBombard. Have a great night, everyone. That's true. Have a great night, everyone. I'm going to say goodbye to you all. We'll just wave. I try to do a high five, but it's not always. Yeah, see how hard that is? Okay. And I'll chat with you all soon. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. And what I have just to say goodbye and follow up with y'all. Coming up on July 22nd, I have Ryan Hill, Cinema and Comedy Programming Director at ArtsQuest. On July 29th, Jamie Bloss is an art educator at Spring Garden Elementary School in Bethlehem Area School District, and Lisa Harms, Director of Education and Outreach for ArtsQuest. On August 12th, Chris Matthews, neo-folk songwriter and recording artist, and that's going to be in advance of Chris's performance with Lehigh Valley Pride right here in Allentown, Bethlehem area of Pennsylvania. And on August 19th, Mike Nelson, who is, I'm going to get his title correct here. He's just caught up with him. He produces a program called, it's a live stream program called Jam in Place at Martin Guitar. And Mike Nelson is Senior Marketing Director at Martin Guitar. So I thank you all for tuning in here tonight, and we'll be back to this in a week. And, play that final music that I have to give you all on the way out, and I am saying good night. Thanks so much.